Hey guys, welcome to the weekly comic book spotlight. What is DC's obsession with gorillas? Stay tuned. Hey everyone, so back in 1933, a little movie came out that changed cinema and pop culture and maybe even brought in science fiction to the mix, although there was a lot of science fiction out there at the time. And that movie was King Kong. This was created by Merian C. Cooper. The movie was about, a giant ape ripped from its home, on Skull Island, where it was happy, and it was brought to New York to be put on display, and then it escaped. And they chased it up a building, Empire State Building, and they shot it down. So it was basically 2 hours of animal abuse. That's what it was. Let's call it what it is, okay? And then the last line always killed me. 'Twas beauty killed the beast. No, it was the friggin' planes and the bullets that killed the beast, plus the fall from 1,000 stories up, or however high the Empire State Building is. I think it's 110. But it was a huge hit, okay? And it just really, it catapulted gorillas into the pop culture, whether it was in the pulp magazines, it was more movies, because they also made a Mighty Joe Young, which I don't know how they got away with that, and obviously comic books. So now, in some comics, you would expect gorillas to play a very prominent role. Tarzan, Jungle Comics, Sheena, things like that. But Superman, Batman, Flash, you wouldn't expect gorillas to play. Now, we have a history with Flash. We know there's, but typically you wouldn't expect a gorilla to play a role in that. But they started putting a lot of gorillas on a lot of covers and in a lot of stories. And the reason for this, very simply, the books sold. There was a great article from Screen Rant. You might want to check it out, where they go through sort of the history of gorillas in comic books and how sales of comics just catapulted when gorillas were on the cover, to the point where they couldn't even keep them in stock. I just wish there was a comic that would reprint some of the best gorilla stories. I mean, where would you find a comic like that? I don't know. Where could you... Oh, there it is. Okay, good. This week's comic book spotlight. Superheroes battle super gorillas. I love this book. And I love this book for a few reasons. First of all, it's published in 1976. It's a giant size. It's number 1. Has a great cover. Okay? But it's funny because every time I bought a collection as a kid, and I've been collecting since I'm 8 years old, and I bought collections when I was in my early 20s, I started buying collections. There was always a copy of this in that collection. And the other day, I went to look for it. Not the other day. No, let's be honest. I think it was 3 or 4 months ago, I went to look for one in my collection, and I have everything, cataloged, so I know what I have. And I realized I didn't have any, so I must have sold them when I sold off my books. And I went out and bought one. I just wanted one. I got it from, I think it was off eBay for $5 or whatnot or something like that. Now, first of all, this cover is a little misleading, okay? Again, the covers sell the book, right? It's kind of like a trailer selling a movie. Make that trailer look good, and the movie's going to do well. Same thing with this. Now, at no time, I don't know if there's a glare here. Let me see if there's a glare. Hold on. There is a glare. I'm sorry. There we go. So at no time in the book is there a gorilla that battles all these superheroes at once. But that's what they put on the cover, and that's what I always thought it was. I thought that's what the story was. One big story where they all battled this giant gorilla. Why? I really didn't care. It just looked like a cool story. So, the thing is about this book, these are reprints, okay? There are 3 stories in this book, all center around Superman, Batman and Robin, and Flash battling some type of gorilla. I'm going to give you a quick summary of the stories, then I'll just tell you what they sell for, and that'll be it for this week's video. So, there are 3 stories here. I don't know which one is more ridiculous than the other, but I guess we'll start with the one where you wouldn't be so surprised that the gorilla is the villain, and that's, of course, Flash, right, with Gorilla Grodd. And this story is taken from number 172 with this classic cover here. And the story opens with Flash. Great story, by the way. I never read this story, even in his book. I just leafed through them. I never actually read stories as a kid. I just looked at the pictures. It was awesome. But now I actually read it. And the story opens up with Flash seeing everybody else sped up. He's the slow one in the story. Something's happening where the entire world is fast and he's slow. So he goes to see a scientist or whatever and realizes that, or thinks that Gorilla Grodd is responsible. And he's controlling this somehow with his mind, and his ransom basically is getting released from prison. So he meets up with Grodd and makes this deal. He goes, fine, I'll release you from prison, stop this. And that's exactly what happens. He releases him from prison and it stops. Turns out that it wasn't Grodd at all. Grodd was bluffing. Okay? And it was something with the sun and solar flares or whatever. And of course, the Flash knocks him out and puts him back in prison. Not the best story. Self-contained, doesn't lead into anything or rely on anything that came before. But still a fun story nonetheless. Second story. Action Comics 238. Now this starts out with Jimmy Olsen on a wild safari in Africa. From out of nowhere. Now, there's the entire world. Okay? Jimmy Olsen happens to be on a safari in Africa when this giant gorilla pops out of the brush and starts breaking things and throwing trucks, and he's got this super strength. They find out he can fly. He's got supervision. He's got cooling breath. He's got all the powers of Superman. Okay? So what they find out is that this gorilla came from Krypton. Okay, look. They sent Superman. They sent Supergirl. They sent Krypto. There was Zod in the Phantom Zone. There was the Bottle City of Kandor. Where was it ever mentioned that there was a gorilla from Krypton? Never. Okay? But there's this huge battle where Superman is just not able to defeat King Krypton, they call him. But notice King Krypton, KK, King Kong, they were trying to play on that. Gorilla's like 5 times stronger than humans. Superman's not going to win. It's not going to happen. But does he win? Of course he wins. Here's how he wins. He exposes a large boulder of kryptonite. Now, talk about coincidence. This boulder of kryptonite just happens to be right where they're fighting. Okay? And he exposes them, he exposes himself, and he puts himself at risk. And the ape sacrificially throws himself on the boulder of kryptonite, shielding Superman from it. And what happens is you see him revert back into a human-type form. It turns out to be a scientist from Krypton who was experimenting with evolution and was blasted into space, not knowing that Krypton would blow up a few minutes later. He's been traveling through space all these years, and then just recently landed on Earth as a gorilla. That's right. As a gorilla. And he realized he can't live his life as a raging gorilla. He had a little bit of sanity from the kryptonite because it brought him back down to human form. And he decided to just stay on the kryptonite. And yeah, he dies. He dies. Superman doesn't save him. Jimmy Olsen doesn't save him. They don't try to save him. A scientist from Krypton. The most advanced civilization ever. Wouldn't you try to save this guy? So, a little disappointing in that story, but that's really what it was. King Krypton, dead in one issue, was a guy, no one saved him. Oh, and then what kills me is this little quip at the end from Jimmy Olsen. Did I say something about modern Africa being tame? Come on, have a little heart. The gorilla's dead. The guy's dead. Anyway, let's go to the last story. The last story, another ridiculous story, but they're cool to have because they represent gorilla covers, gorilla stories. That's why I love this book. Last story is from Batman 75. This is the gorilla boss of Gotham City. Okay, this story was a bit confusing. So there's this mobster boss, Dyke, great name, who's executed. and his body is transported to a scientist who then implants Dyke's brain. Yes, I have to use the word Dykes just because that's his name. Dyke's brain into a gorilla. Okay? Once he's into the body of the gorilla, he goes around Gotham City committing all of these crimes. His goal is to raise $1 million. Okay. Get through all the robberies, he raises $1 million. Then what does he do? His plan is to now take his brain and interchange it with Batman's brain. So but he goes into Batman's body, Batman's brain goes into the gorilla. Because, which I guess is kind of clever, because he can give her to Batman, but not only that, now everybody will be chasing the gorilla, not realizing it's Batman, and his problems will be done. He'll be sitting on $1 million back in the 1950s. That's not a bad thing to sit on. And that's basically the story. But, does he get away with it? Of course not. They catch him. I don't know what they do. They kill him? I don't think they kill him. Huh. That's a good question. I'm not going to read it again. Anyway, so these three stories are really representative of the DC guerrilla cover genre. And why did DC publish this in 1976? Well, this movie came out. And this was another King Kong. So they were trying to capitalize on the remake of King Kong by putting out these. And look at the size. It's a great cover. But it came out in 1976. Number one, it's a one shot. But it just has one of those covers right away it's from the 70s. It's like it just reeks of mid 70s. It's very awesome. Just as a bonus, it has some great ads for superhero merch that we kind of wish we all had now. There are some t-shirts and I think there are some posters or toys or stickers or things like that. The ads in these books were just amazing. As an aside, I'm going to bring these up one day. There are comic books that are strictly toy catalogs from the 70s. You must have seen these. It's called Superhero Catalog. They're very inexpensive. You can go online and buy those. But let's talk about the values of this book. There are 37 graded copies. They range from 4.0 to 9.8. There are 4 9.8s. And I would imagine that, given... I love these bindings of the spines here, the rounded spines, not the square spines, the rounded spines hold up very, very well. So I'm kind of not surprised that there are 4 9.8s of only 37 graded, which is kind of weird. Not a lot of them out there. The only sale of a 9.8 was from May of last year, and it sold for $311. Honestly, I probably would have bought it. It's not a bad price for a 9.8. And other conditions can be had for much, much less. It's not an expensive book. Cool one to have in your collection. Let me know what you think. And I have 2 more videos coming out. There's one on, this one you want to catch. 10 first appearances that you could still find out in the wild. The thing is, they are cool first appearances and they're not Marvel or DC. So look out for that video. Should be coming out soon. And I have a CBCS video where this company is just horrific. And I'm going to take you through the entire list of emails that went back and forth from July of 2021. By the way, the one book that I was waiting for, I still don't have. But I'll share it with you in that other video. So until then, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you have this book, if you like this book. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay? Till then, ciao.